currently my favorite genre of games. So what's it about all these? What's the fuss? What is it about these games that draw people to it? It's Space Invaders had very crude graphics. But the later games, they feature great graphics, colorful bitmaps, colorful explosions, very nice animations, a lot of frames used and stuff. So, yeah, I think that draws people to them. They often have very great music, and I think also the very simple game mechanics is something that draws people to them. You just have to steer and you have to fire, and something comes at you, and you just blast it to hell. And if you blast something to hell, you get a weird noise. Perhaps you should have picked it up or something. It's a very easy way to play games, and it's Twitch reflex like. So but it's not all brainless reflexes, because there's very specific types of games. There's games that have specific waves that you have to remember, or you have to have some sort of how do you say that? You have to have a sort of strategy to move through these special weapons that are necessary. If you pick up the wrong weapon or you pick up the wrong speed up, then you'll end up not being able to defeat the end boss and stuff. So yeah, or is it not that, but is it that people strive to be astronauts? They want to sit in the seat of these daring astronauts shooting into space, and like this how do you say that, the last Starfighter game. I'm not sure, but so the gameplay of the shmup has evolved over time. The first generation of games, Space Invaders, it was just simply steering left and right and shooting up and dodging the bullets. And later games, they allowed movement up and down, and they used different styles of controls. They introduced trackballs or dials, analog controls. So that made more specific control, more precise control of your gaming avatar possible. And great stuff. For example, Space Invaders, that was invented in 1978 by Taito. Well, that's the granddaddy of video games. And it features no more than 55 invaders on the screen and 11 in-game sounds. So an improvement on the Space Invader game mechanics was actually Galaxian, which was created a year later by Namco in 1979. It actually ran on different hardware, and it was one of the first games to actually use RGB color monitor. Previously, video games were always monochrome, or they used these overlays or painted TV tubes actually. So great stuff. Really an improvement of all the other previous games, and a game that is very similar to Galaxian, but also again improved on that, was actually Galaga, and that appeared, I think, 2 years later. Yeah, 2 years, in 1981, and that was by Namco as well. It was very much like Galaxian, but it allowed different game mechanics. You could fire more than one button at the same time. It was less frustrating, and you could actually double up the fire power if you had some extra ships left. You could actually have the aliens pick up your ship, and if you shoot the alien with the ship back down, you actually got double ship and double avatar that you could actually double your firepower with. So great stuff, great game mechanics, great sounds, and great stuff. And then A game that was also very, very much like Space Invaders, but had an improvement on it, was actually a game designed by a woman, and that was Centipede in 1980, so a year previously, by Atari. And yeah, you're basically this creature where you have to where you have to shoot centipedes that are coming down at you on the screen. You can move up, down, left, right, and there's some special things. There's a spider that comes to attack you. If you shoot it, you get extra points. You have to shoot down the if you shoot down a centipede, then this mushroom appears, and if a centipede walks across the screen and comes in contact with a mushroom, it drops down a line. So if there's a lot of mushrooms, the centipedes go walk faster, and they come down a lot faster. So get rid of the mushrooms, get rid of the centipede, get rid of everything, and don't run into things that you don't want to run into. So very interesting, very frantic gameplay. And then a game that is very much like very much like Galaga, but with a twist, literally, is Gyruss. Gyruss was created by Konami in 1983. And it actually is Galaga, but then with some sort of it's like the whole screen has been folded up into some sort of tube, and you are actually watching down the tube, where your spaceship is actually being able to rotate around the front of the tube, and all the aliens, they come from the distance, and they fly in and they fly out in very nice patterns. Very great game, and it featured I think it featured Bach music, Bach's Toccata and Fugue in D minor, and I guess Bach must have rolled over in his grave because it's a crazy version of this of his music, but it really works with the game. So yeah, great game. And then a game that's very similar to Gyruss, but again improved upon the bitmap graphics at the time by using vector graphics, being able to display a much smoother game screen, is actually Tempest, which actually was created a bit earlier even than Gyruss. But you know, a lot of these improvements happened in parallel. But Tempest, I mean, everybody knows Tempest, and if you don't, you should go check it out. It's a game where enemies fly up at you, come up at you in a perspective, and you actually are part of you are sitting in some sort of grid, and you have to destroy all these enemies that come up at you, and if you destroy all the enemies, then you win the grid, and then you move on to another grid. And a game that's also very similar to that is actually Beamrider. And for some reason, I've read somewhere that Beamrider actually was a way of the game creators to make some sort of Tempest-like game onto the bitmapped game consoles of the time, because even though they were running on very, very similar processors, they weren't using vector graphics, and the smoothness of these vector graphics used in Tempest could not easily be reproduced in the bitmap form. So they created Beamrider. At least that's what I heard. And of course, a similar game using vector graphics is Asteroids. Who doesn't know Asteroids? It's an early game. It's from 1979, but still uses black and white colors. And then a very amazing game that introduced another specific thing that is found in later shmups is actually Sky Raider. Sky Raider 1978 by Atari, which featured a scrolling background. A scrolling background very similar to the one found in Xevious, for example. And so yeah, the avatar, the game avatar that that's sits in the screen, and the background moves. There's this scrolling background that the spaceship flies over. That's something that you see in a lot of modern games. And the game I named earlier, Xevious 1982 by Namco, is one of these examples. They're introducing a lot more video game mechanics, gameplay mechanics. And then, of course,